tell you a story. I'll tell you a bunch of stories. I'll tell you a bunch of stories about me landing here in Denver and growing up and functioning with the Chicano Bloodz and what it was like and what it's like out here in Denver. Because Denver's unique whenever it comes to gangs in a lot of ways. And one of the ways is the fact that there's probably, I'm going to give a rough estimate, I would say there's 3 to 4 Mexican Bloods for every Black Blood. I can't see the comments. The comments are messing up right now. I don't know why they flash on the screen and then they pop off. Whatever, it don't matter. We'll get to the comments later. If you guys are out there, I see somebody watching. If it's one of the homies, good looking. If it's a new watcher, good looking too. Run them likes in. So, out here in Denver, there's a neighborhood called Park Hill. Park Hill is the center, the community center, basically, of the Black Bloodz, right? My understanding is, now I don't know a lot about this, as far as the black situation, that was a different part of town. Denver's a very racially segregated city. At least it was whenever I first got here. It's gotten better now. There's a lot more mixing of the races now, but back in the day, there was not at all. Whenever I was growing up in Westwood, if you seen a black dude, you were supposed to report that because black people were Crips. As far as we were concerned, black people were Crips and they weren't supposed to be over here. They were probably up to something. You know what I mean? So I'm sure there's a couple different black sets out there, but overwhelmingly, if you meet a Black Blood in Denver, that's from Denver, from a Denver gang, they're Park Hill, right? The Chicanos are not the same way. The Chicanos have, okay, so some of these gangs are like officially blood gangs that are part of Crenshaw Mafia, and some of them are, other ones are renegade sets that just popped up by themselves. Okay, so we got CMG, 10-4, and then there's different sets of CMG out here. There's West Ridge, that's a newer set, newer gang. I don't really know them cats that well. There was the Southside families. Southside families were CMGs. There was Southwest family, CMG. There was Westside CMG, just Westside CMG. And my understanding is I believe the Park Hills are CMGs as well, right? It's all got something to do with a couple different people, but a man named Taco from Inglewood came out here a long time ago, right? Don't know the cat. This was before my time. I was still a youngster. I was 13 whenever I got here. I got here in 1996, and the Bloods were already rooted. They were rooted out here. Now, there's 16 block. Now, there was some confusion about whether 16 block was Crenshaw Mafia or not. There we go. Irony, I see you. What up? We finally got the comments. The comments finally popped through. Katie, how you doing? So there was some confusion about whether or not 16 blocks were CMGs. My understanding is, yes, that is, they were, or they are, excuse me. They are. Though they didn't toe the line. And 16 block is a very big blood gang here in Denver. Very big. Chicano blood gang. Predominantly Chicano. I know there's some whites. There's a couple whites. I'm sure there's probably some blacks too. But it's overwhelmingly Mexican. Some natives, there's some natives involved too. So there's 16 block, there's West Ridge, there's all the different factions of CMG. There's KCB, which is Crazy Chicano Blood. There was LGB, which is Latino Gangster Blood. There was ZMP, which was Zero Man Posse. Those are the homeboys. White Boy, what up? AZ as well. What up, my homie? That was mostly a family. I think as far as I know, like almost that whole hood is basically related to each other and they function with each other. There's the Commerce City Bloods. I don't know enough about them. I believe they're Crenshaw Mafias. Don't hang me if I'm wrong on that. I knew a couple of them. I never really asked. But my understanding is, I think they are, but they just go by CCB, I believe, Commerce City Blood. I'm a big gangster myself. Crip and Tommy jumped me into Thunder Gang. Thunder Gang. So, there's more. It keeps going. So there was different sets. There's the West Sevens, right? And there was two parts of West Sevens, if I remember right. There's West 7th Avenue, which I believe are Bloods. And then there was SAK, which was 7th Avenue Kings. And I don't think they were Bloods, but they were highly correlated with them. Rode with them, red flag, da-da-da-da-da. Like basically in the same car, similar to like a Pyru or something like that. I don't think there's any Pyru sets in Denver. I've met some Pyrus out here, but I don't think there's any actual Pyru sets from Denver. I could be wrong, but I never ran into them. So, and there's more. There's still more blood gang. There's all them fools in Aurora. There's a bunch of Bloods out in Aurora too. Black fools and white fools. I think they're mafias. Not 100%. Man, the comments are messed up today. Like they keep flashing on the screen. I don't know what. I hate this phone. I didn't want the police to get my phone whenever I got busted. It was in the car with a bunch of other stuff. I didn't want them to have my phone, so I was like, nah, I didn't got no phone. They never messed with it, and so now I'm stuck with I lost my iPhone, and I'm stuck with a piece of garbage. But we're gonna push through though, right? So all these different blood gangs, whenever I got here in 1996, the correlation or the overlap between the black and the Mexican Bloods was almost non-existent. There was none. Like so one of the homies from my hood, the homie Faustino from my hood, his mother died whenever he was very young. Rest in peace to her. And his father was imprisoned. And so his sister married an OG from Crenshaw Mafia, the homie Smugs, the big homie Smugs. And functionally, they had custody of one of the homies from my hood. And so we hung out all the time under the umbrella of all these cats from Crenshaw Mafia, all these cats from 16 Block. Those were the big homies, even though I wasn't a Blood and my hood didn't really have anything necessarily to do with Bloods. The woman who married the Crenshaw Mafia was from my hood, and Faustino was from my hood. So we got to see all of this. I got to see all of this. There wasn't no black people around. These fools are banging Bloods every day, actively gang banging, doing the most, everything that correlates with gang banging. And there wasn't no black people around. Like I said, if you seen black people, I mean, there was a couple black people in the neighborhood. There was a Westwood fool named Greg, half dead. Shout out to the homie half dead from Westwood Hood. There was very few black people in Westwood. Westwood is a Mexican and Asian neighborhood. The neighborhood that I'm from is Mexican and Asian. The Asians, I think they did some cripping, but they weren't a concern to us. They kind of had their own little trip going on. I don't know. And you just never really ran into them. I don't know exactly what their trip was. So whenever I was growing up, I grew up around all these Chicano Bloodz, and the vast majority of them were very racist. They were culturally, and they're Mexican. You know what I mean? Their heritage was Mexican. Their parents spoke Spanish. There was a good deal of whites too, but it was mostly Mexican, and they just didn't function with the blacks at all. Now I'm gonna tell you a story. I talked about this on Chad's channel, on Blood on the Razor Wire. My interview's a couple years old now, but I talked about this. I got into it with the Black Blood, like maybe 2 months into prison, 2-3 months into prison. I get into it with the Black Blood fool. We tangle up, go to the hole. I'm in the hole for I don't know, 45 days or something like that. I get out the hole. They send you down to property. Whenever you get out the hole, you go down to property. So I go down to get my property. I look over, and here's the homie Giant Loco from 16 Block, right? The homie Fredo. He comes walking down the thing, and I'm like, oh, man, I just got into it with the Bloods, and I ain't even made it out of property. I ain't even got my property yet, and here's another Blood. I'm like, fuck. You know what I mean? Because this prison, I don't really know what to expect from prison. The homie comes up. He daps me up. He says, hey, dog, fuck these fools. They want to do something, we'll get it. It is what it is. That's what he's telling me about the Black Bloodz. I said, bet. That's what's up. You know what I mean? So I leave property. They send me down to Lower North. That's a unit. And I got my little property, and the homie Speedy said, hey, homie, what's up? Da-da-da-da-da. And I said, hey, we're like 30, 40 feet away in the hallway. I said, well, what's going on, doggy? Da-da-da-da-da. And I see the black fools, and the black fools are pointing at me. And they're talking amongst each other, and they're like, that's the fool who took off on the homie. That's what I know what they're telling him. They're like, that's that motherfucker right there. That's him. You know what I mean? And they're all grouping up. There's like 3 or 4 of them. So the big homie from my hood, he's the only other one from my hood on the yard. He's like, just hit the yard, homie. We'll see what's cracking. Okay, cool. So later on that day, I hit the yard. There's like maybe 4 or 5 GKIs, which is Gallant Knights Insane, which have no correlation. This is a Denver-based gang. There's 2 Cheeky 30s, which are Chicano Crips. There's like 4 or 5 Chicano Bloodz, and like 5 Northside Mafia. And they're all out there, and my homie, and the homie from my hood, and they're all out there grouped up. And I don't even know most of these cats. I know a couple of them, like the homie Demon from GKI was out there. But I walk out, and these fools are all ready to back me up, right? All they know is I'm a fish, and I just took off on this big-ass black fool. You know what I mean? They're like, this fool's got balls. You know what I mean? That's all they're thinking. It's like, this fool's got balls. Homie, this fool's a rider. We're going to back this fool up, right? So I got Mexican Bloods on a yard, on a prison yard, backing me up against Black Bloodz, right? Now, this was the dynamic. This was, I don't know. I mean, it's a weird situation. I don't even know what to, I still remember to this day thinking like, what, you know what I mean? That's weird. It's weird. But because of how we had all grown up, this was the norm, right? Now, the Black Bloods in Denver, they have their hands full, right? Because they live out there with the Crips. Denver is racially segregated. Right down the middle, you got Broadway. There's a city called, or not a city, there's a street, Broadway Boulevard, runs right north and south, right down the middle of Denver. And whenever you go east of Broadway, you start seeing black people. When you go west of Broadway, not as much. More now, like I said, more now. But back then, they weren't welcome. You know what I mean? It wasn't like they couldn't come. They could come if they wanted to. You know what I mean? You come over, see the homies or whatever, but people would make it known that you weren't really welcome. What are you doing here? You know what I mean? This isn't your neighborhood. You're supposed to be east of Broadway, or you're supposed to be out in Aurora, right? Aurora, Denver has a sister city called Aurora. It's not really a suburb. Like, it's technically a suburb, right? Because it's a city on the outlier of Denver, but it's just as hood as Denver is, if not worse. There's parts of Aurora that are just as bad as any part of Denver. There's parts of Aurora that are really bad. This is also where all the Sureños got pushed to, right? So there's not Denver Sureño gangs. You won't find Denver Sureño gangs. You'll find Aurora Sureño gangs, or Pueblo Sureño gangs, or Greeley Sureño gangs, but not in Denver, right? That's another story, though. So Denver's very racially segregated down that line on Broadway. Well, the Black Bloods live out here they live east of Broadway with the Crips. And they're outnumbered by the Black Crips because there's a gang of fucking Black Crips out here. It's like LA. out here with the Crip and the Blood, the ratio. Like, there's a gang of fucking Black Crips out here. I don't know. I bet you there's. I was just in the county. I was just in Denver County with a gang of Black Crips, the whole pod, and they're cool. You know what I mean? They're cool. They chill. But I mean, I'm talking. I was just in the pod in Denver County, and I bet you there was 15 Black Crips in that pod, and this is like 60 people. So what in the pod? So like 1 out of 4 is a Crip. There was no Black Bloods at all. There was 2 or 3 Mexican Bloods, right? So the Black Bloods kind of got their hands full out there with the Crips anyway. They've got their little area, and then the Crips kind of surround them. It's kind of like an LA situation. The Crips kind of surround them. But out here, west of Broadway, completely different dynamic, right? You got all these different Mexican blood sets that popped up all over the place. And then they started absorbing, you know what I mean, different tagger sets and different crews. And I know KE is highly correlated with them, which is Kill 'Em All, which I think that's just a tagging group, but they all seem to be fucking Bloods from what I could tell. My little cousins in there. And so I don't know if you have to be a Blood to be in that set, or I don't know enough about that. I shouldn't even speak on that. But now you don't have to be a Blood, because I know people who aren't Bloods who are in that tagging crew. But they're highly correlated. There's a lot of overlap there, right? And so, especially whenever I got out the joint, all my little cousins and them, they all became Bloods, right? Because my hood was a Cholo hood. You know what I mean? We spent hours a day creasing our clothes, you know what I mean? Fedoras, wife beaters, the whole 9 G Nikes, Nike Cortez, all that. That was normal for us, you know what I mean? And that was going out of fashion because that was highly correlated with the Sureños. That was another reason. That was kind of the death knell for my hood, is because my hood banged 13, right? My hood banged 13, and we weren't Sureños, right? But that was still hard for a lot of people. It wasn't palatable out here, you know? And that's why you even see the oldies today. There's a huge gang out in East Denver called Eastside Oldies. And they used to be Eastside Oldies 13. Now they're Eastside Oldies Trey 7, I believe. They may still bang 13, but I don't see that anymore. And I think they did it because there was some confusion about whenever they got to the joint. And they banged with the Crips. So this is a 13 gang with a red rag. Now, I think initially they wore a black rag, but they ended up just as a disrespect to the Crips because they're living in the middle of all the Crips. This is a big gang. All these is a big gang. These fools started being flamed up, right? But I think there was some confusion whenever they got to the joint about whether they were supposed to ride with those Sureños or not, or da-da-da-da-da. And so to delineate, so to let everybody know, they just changed it to Oldies Trey 7, right? My hood didn't. My hood's from 13th Street, right? So we didn't have a choice. My hood's from 13th and Wolf, right by Colfax and Sheridan. We didn't have a choice. That's our hood. That's our block. You know what I mean? There's 13, it's 13, right? The mestizos as well. And so for that reason, that Cholo style mixed with the number 13, it just wasn't palatable. It wasn't palatable in the city of Denver. We never got no flack over it. Everybody always knew where we stood. You know what I mean? But people always kind of looked at us weird, like, what do you mean? Like, you know, I'd show up on a yard and they'd be like, well, what, you ride with the Sureños? Or nah, ain't got nothing to do with Sureños. More correlated with the Bloods than anything, right? So the Chicano Bloodz out here have become such a big entity in prison. They became such a big entity, and they outnumber the Black Bloods so much that though the Black Bloods hold their own, right? What do you do when you're outnumbered 3 to 4 to 1? It can become impossible trying to fold somebody up under your wing, right, or make these people fall in line. You know, like the Sur ended up with the same situation out here. You would get these cats from LA that would come out here and they'd say, "Oh, you guys ain't Sureños. You're not Sureños, da 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 da." But the Sureños out here, like in Pueblo and shit, these folks are killing each other. You know what I mean? They put holes in you. You know what I mean? And there was some beef. there was a lot of beef out here because these cats from LA were coming out and they try to act a certain way, and it would come to a head. It came to a head a couple times, and the cats from LA had to admit, hey, homie, these fools are holding it down. Whether we like them or not, these fools are holding it down for the cause. You know what I mean? So they just had to deal with that. They had to deal with the fact that these fools are banging it, and you can only bang something so hard for so long before you stop being a wannabe, right? If I'm willing to put you in the dirt over it, who says I'm a wannabe, right? And that's all throughout the United States. I mean, the Strangles, the Bloods, whatever. You know, you'll hear people say, "Oh, well, these fools ain't sanctioned. These fools ain't this. These fools ain't that." My understanding is the whole state of New York wasn't sanctioned, right? Them cats who started that on Rikers Island, who started the Bloods out there, they weren't sanctioned at all. They just said, "Fuck it, this is Bloods," right? You know, now one of the biggest gangs out there in New York. Whereas these cats out here, they actually had a sanction from Inglewood, Colorado, right? A couple of these cats come out there, and you'll see there's a guy named P, the Blood they call P from Park Hill, Purnell, that talks about this. He talks about them coming out here, them coming out here, Taco and them dudes coming out here from Inglewood and bringing Bloods with them, you know? And it was just a little while after that, you know, before that, whenever the Crips had come out here. And there was the same thing. It was Crips from, I believe, Watts, South Central, who came out here. I can't remember his name right now. But came out here and basically, you know what I mean? He came out here. They sent him out here. I think the judge sent him out here and said they sentenced him to get the hell out of the state of California and go be with his family in Colorado. He comes out here, looks around and said, man, this shit is ripe for the picking. Sends word back to California, and they start sending all kinds of Crips out here, and that's how the Rolling 30s ended up out here. And that's why the majority of the Crip sets in Denver are extensions of either the Rolling 30s or the Compton Front Hoods. And the Compton Crip Riders Front Hood set. So there's so many of these Mexican Bloods that, and a lot of them were straight Mexicans, you know what I mean? Like actually their mothers and fathers were immigrants, things of this nature, that they functionally kind of made their own lane. They forced their own lane, so much so that, like I said, there was gangs out here, blood gangs that weren't even sanctioned, like Latino Gangster Blood and all that. These are not mafias. They ain't never claimed mafias. I don't think they've ever. Let's see. Rotate it back. Now let's get some comments. Let's see. Live chat. All messages visible. Crap. Okay. Tommy Thunder, what up, my homie? That's kind of the spiel about the Bloods anyway, right? After that, there's not a whole lot to say. Tommy Thunder, I see you. Crap. What's going on with it? How's everybody doing today? Can we get some message, man? I can't see the message. I'm going to have to do this thing vertical. All the messages came through good last time. Yeah, and it's just fucking up this time. As a matter of fact, I'm going to start another live stream. That's my spiel on the Chicano Bloodz of Denver. We'll just call it like that. I'm about to start another live stream just to talk to the homies and shit because I cannot see y'all messages. I really need to get my iPhone back. This is ridiculous. So I'll see y'all in 5 minutes, 2 minutes, something like that, if you're still around. I love you, my homies. Run them likes up. But I'm not getting the comments, and I want to be able to talk to everybody. You know what I mean? I haven't seen anybody in so long. I want to be able to talk to everybody. So I'll be right back. Put a dip in too, I think. See, I can't even end. Yeah, I want to end the stream. Sure, you want to stop streaming? Yeah. Put some fucking Copenhagen in.